So you see Blaine, and he's very active. Blaine's a big Instagram poster. So you want to know what's going on in Blaine's life, you just follow him on Instagram, and you'll get to see all the pictures and all the stories. I got to get better at that myself. But Alex filling in today for the Hitman. Let's start with this because I knew you were going to be on today. And anybody who ever catches you on here, they know that you were raised in Middle Tennessee. And if you're new, then I'll just let the cat out of the bag. He was raised in Middle Tennessee. So a lot of the stories that you tell about athletes and about ball games and things that you've seen, they're very personal. You went to the game with your family, your grandfather, whatever it was. Curious to get your thoughts on Pekka Rinne. And then after that, I'm going to tell people something fun we're going to do in the second hour of the program. But I thought about people like you who grew up around here and just what that must have been like because you saw his whole career. You wound up covering him as a media member, and then now we all have to at least say goodbye to him on the ice.
Sure. It's a good segue into what we're going to do in the second hour because I think it will be fun. I hope we'll take some calls and get some interesting ideas on this, but I'll kind of just leave that tease at that for now. Yeah, when I think I am a testament to what the Predators have done really well in this town. I mean, I remember watching games the first couple of years. My dad would take us to maybe one game a year, and it was usually against the Red Wings, and the Predators would lose 4-1, and I'd be in the bathroom during the one goal that they scored. Crispy and Pete Weber were on the broadcast trying to teach Nashvillians hockey for the people that were watching, the small segment that were interested in watching. But I did not grow up a hockey fan, and really until maybe the year before the Stanley Cup final or right around that time, was very much just a casual observer of the Predators, but someone who has just fallen in love with that as a sport and with that team. And Pekka Rinne is a big reason why. I mean, you take Pekka off of that 2017 team, and I'm certain they don't make the finals. And he's a testament to if your goalie is great, you can ride that like it's Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I mean, Carey Price for the Montreal Canadiens was a great example this year. So Pekka is a big reason why I like and watch hockey. You take him off those teams, maybe they make a run that really gets me and thousands of other Nashvillians invested. Maybe they don't. But it is interesting. I think that Pekka Rinne stands alone on Tennessee's Mount Rushmore as the only hockey player. And, if we're just talking pro sports, maybe I've got McNair up there. I think some other people would say that you would put Eddie George on your Mount Rushmore, but I honestly think that it's McNair and Pekka Rinne kind of standing alone as people that were exactly what we're going to talk about in the second hour, like transformational figures that once there's sort of the McNair era and the Rinne era, and then there's like everything else. Now, the Titans are kind of in a moment right now, so maybe we'll be talking about the Derrick Henry, Tannehill era or the Vrabel era in a couple of years. But I think those two really stand alone as surpassing their peers in a way that transformed a city and that sport in that city. McNair because he was first, and Rinne because he's the one who made Nashville a hockey town for a brief moment. And that's probably the reason why Nashville got the NFL draft and got a lot of these things based off of what they showed during that Stanley Cup run.
I said the same thing. We're not sitting in the same sports city today if it's not for Pekka Rinne, because he was the best player and the face of the franchise and a big reason why they did all the things that they did. And everybody started to take notice when you had 300,000 people just hanging out downtown when there are only 17 that could get into the arena or whatever the number was. It may have been more than that. And Luke Bryan is singing on the roof of a bar. And, the players said they were like watching on TVs. I remember talking to some of the players. PK Subban was a weekly guest on 3HL. If you're new to the station, I used to be on 3HL. And PK Subban was a regular guest on that show. He would come on every week.
And he was so good on that show, by the way. I love those interviews.
That dude was he was always a good guest for sure. We wish him absolutely the best wherever he goes. Did a lot of great things in this town, certainly for charity and a whole bunch of people. But he said, we were watching on TVs. Because, they have the place where they park and then they can sort of go and avoid the crowd and all. And he said, we just couldn't believe what we were seeing. And shortly after that, the Titans do their uniform reveal. And a few, 30,000 or so came down. It was a real nice looking crowd on a cold, not particularly the best weather night, but anyway. But the whole thing with what the Preds did, and people realizing this is Nashville, Tennessee, and this is hockey. And they're supporting that like this. Imagine football. Imagine the draft. Imagine, to me, Pecorine is as responsible for the rise of all that. And you even said it yourself, what it led to. He was the leader of what all that led to. And there's a, if you also listen to the show, you know I'm a big Arkansas State person. I went to school there. I worked there. And I try not to bring it up. And I haven't brought up Arkansas State in weeks. Check the record. Lucas will even back me up. He's eating his Swiss cheese, by the way. This is his final day of cheese eating to pay off a bet against himself. 3 slices a day. So if you're a doctor who can deal with clogging, you may get a call from Lucas Penzica. But we had a quarterback, a guy named Ryan Applin. And he's now on the staff there. He was on Hugh Freeze's staff at Ole Miss. He was on Malzahn's staff at Auburn. He was on the staff at Western Kentucky for a little while with Coach Helton. But somebody asked me once about him and his legacy. And I said, when the moment was the biggest, he was his best. And when it meant the most, he meant the most. He meant the most in the moments that meant the most. And that's where people like Steve McNair come in and Pecorine, people who took a franchise or a school or something and they elevated it in some way.
To something it hadn't ever been before.
It's something that was better when they left. But the question is, and this is, boy, here we go. This is what a lead in for this. This is the question for the middle segment or the rest of the second hour, if so be it. What sports figure has left a team and that team was never the same for you? And it could be retired. It could be Pecorine. It could be all you closet Colts fans who had Titan season tickets and wore a Peyton Manning jersey when he showed up. Because there were a bunch of y'all that did that.
There were.
I know some of you. Maybe you're a Broncos fan, and it was the brief Manning thing there, but you did get a Super Bowl thanks to your defense and you know how that year came together. I had a friend who called me. I posted this on Facebook too, and he was the biggest Michael Jordan fan. And he said, you know what I would say? It's the Bulls and Michael Jordan. I said, I'll take you one further. I bet there are people who will call today or they'll respond to us on Twitter at Blaine Mickey who would say, and Alex, roll with me here. The NBA as a league was never the same for them after Michael Jordan left.
I don't think that's hyperbolic. In the same way that I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that Pecorine.
By the way, thanks for dropping hyperbolic. Thanks for dropping hyperbolic twice on you. It's the 2 biggest words that have ever been said, even though they were the same one.
Maybe an exaggeration. I'll go with
perfect.
The NBA is now a player-driven league. I mean, how many people do you ever hear talking at dinner or at a party that you're at? Man, I hate the Bucks. Or, man, I hate the Bulls. Now, yeah. It's not a team league like that. You may kind of hate the Lakers, or maybe you still don't like the Celtics because you were growing up and you loved Showtime in LA. But that's not the league anymore. And Michael Jordan, those Bulls have never been the same. They've never competed again. I mean, you had a brief Derrick Rose stint, and sometimes a guy leaves a team, and that is it. We kind of learned that with McNair. How pleasant were the next decade of Locker and Young and Mettenberger and Ryan Fitzpatrick and Touchdown Jesus. What was his name? Whitehurst.
Charlie Whitehurst. Chillin' Chuck. Yeah.
There's a lot of times that a transcendent player like that leaves a team, and you just can't really get it back all that quickly. Like the Patriots are in that era right now. Can the Patriots be great without Tom Brady? They certainly weren't last year. The irony was they couldn't even throw the ball. I mean, Cam Newton was terrible. So recovering from those transcendent icons is really tough. And I think there's only 2 in Nashville history because you remember where you were when the Titans made the Super Bowl. We don't have any really titles that Nashville claims, but you remember where you were when the Titans made the Super Bowl, and you remember where you were during that Stanley Cup run. And that's what's made this sports town for the last 20 years.
Yeah, 20 plus now. We already have a couple people who want to weigh in on these. So let's do it. We'll take these calls, but everybody else just do your best, kind of hold on to them, and we'll just smash it all in the second hour. But we got Steve, we got Bobcat, who already want to play this game. Steve from Nashville up first, then Bobcat. What's going on, Steve?
Hey guys, hey Blaine, how are you? How y'all doing?
We're doing well.
We're doing good.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up because I haven't really thought. Well, I love the Grizzlies. I've morphed into a major Grizzlies fan, but I loved the Chief, Robert Parrish, and McHale, and Larry Bird, and when those guys finally retired and weren't nuclear anymore together, I just really wasn't a Boston fan anymore. It's kind of weird.
No, I think that's fair. Dennis Johnson.
That's a great example.
Well,
There's not teams like that in the
loaded.
NBA. I love the Grizzlies too. I love the Grizzlies, but I don't hate any other team. Why would I hate anybody else in the NBA? They always kind of move around too much. I'm kind of tired of some teams.
And here's the thing, like
same old.
Everybody with a Steph Curry Warriors jersey, not everybody, but most everybody. If tomorrow he's like, I'm a free agent, I'm going to join the Pacers, they would just go get his Pacers jersey and keep on trucking. Yeah. They wouldn't be like, screw you, man, Warriors for life. They would be like, I'm going to Foot Locker now, and I'm going to buy his Pacers jersey.
Get me his jersey and his newest shoe.
Let's get amen to that, although sometimes those shoes of his are a little ugly. Bobcat from White House next on Jordan. What's going on, Bobcat?
Hey guys. Actually, it's Wildcat. I called in earlier, like a couple weeks ago, about the checkerboards and all that. But
sorry,
you said
Wildcat.
something about Michael Jordan. No, you're good. So you said Michael Jordan, like after he left, and I'm guessing after he won his 6th championship, that's where the NBA wasn't the same. But Michael Jordan left after his 3rd championship. We all know this from The Last Dance. And the Bulls were actually still pretty good. They almost made it to the finals again, or if not the finals. So I don't know if you want to correct me on that. But Michael Jordan had a lot of supporting cast on his team and everything, that when he left, they were fine without him.
Well, they didn't win another championship without him.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the same old. I think they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals that one year without him with Pippen was unbelievable. But they never won. They were not a dominant dynasty. Nobody's going to look up the, early 2000s Bulls and go, man, that was a team. I think that's the biggest difference. I mean,
that's a
marker in time.
Oh,
Jordan
gosh.
And after Jordan.
Yeah, Brian actually tweeted me and said, Mickey, you nailed it. I haven't been able to get into the NBA since Jordan retired. And I'll give you after the 6th championship or after he came back. And this is not my phrase. I remember someone calling him Floor Jordan after he returned because his game was so different with the Wizards. But I know people who clung to every moment of that like it was the last few drops in a canteen as they traversed the desert. But it all dried up for them once the Jordan era, the Jordan rules shut down. So
they
we're going to get into that in hour 2.
Sorry, they reached the conference semifinals without Jordan. That first year without him. They lost to the Knicks in 7 games. But then his first year back, they lost in the conference semifinals again before that second three-peat.
Okay. Lucas Panzica with speaking the truth there. But yeah, I love you, Wildcat. You made a great point a few weeks ago when you called in, but come on, man. Let's don't say, the Bulls, it wasn't really that much different. It was so different. It was all of the different that it could be. Yes, they were still competitive because they had some great players and some really good players. But come on, man.
How long did even that last? 2-3 years?
Yeah, and then it was just a never-ending trip through the cellar with Tim Floyd and Pink Floyd and Floyd from Mayberry and everybody else. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Buck Reising will join us. We'll ask him this question and a whole bunch of other questions as we do our weekly segment with the man, Buck Reising, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford. That's next. Blaine Mickey with special guest Alex Apple, just chilling on a Friday.
No one knows Titans football more than Buck Reising. Buck Reising Show. Monday morning starting at 10 on 104.5 The Zone.
So
for the purposes of correcting, I did not call you specifically old Mickey. I said that the audience of baseball is largely old and white, and that just so happens to include you.
I do happen to be both of those things.
That's okay.
What's your ideal birthday at 28? And I'll ask you, is that maybe different even than it was when you were 5 or 6 or so? Is it like a big stack of pancakes and then go on an adventure to the zoo or something? What does a day consist of? A birthday, the actual birthday for Buck Reising?
Well, the actual birthday, I'm going to do the radio show. I'm going to do the primetime show. I'm going to do the 615 Sessions podcast, and then I'm probably going to tape the new Greg Cosell podcast I'm doing. So the actual birthday is going to look like a lot of work. But for what we're doing this weekend is my lovely girlfriend Dara has put together a dinner situation where we're going to go out with about 15 of my friends. And then we have a table that we have gotten at a nightclub in Printers Alley that I'm looking forward to hanging out there and enjoying more friends at said table. And then we're going to the Nashville SC soccer game tomorrow with a bunch of listeners. So that will be a great time too. Now, whether I am capable of pulling myself up off the couch come Sunday will be an entirely different matter, but that's about as good as I could ask for, given that this is a completely meaningless birthday.
Pretty stellar stuff. They're all meaningful, man. Anyone that you get to spend above ground is a good one in my book. Buck Reising joins us. Tell us, hey, I know people have heard about it because it's been everywhere on the Zone and everybody's talking about it. For anybody who has not heard, tell them about this new thing, The Install, with the guy who breaks down tape really better than anybody in the business, a fellow named Greg Cosell.
Yeah, so they came to me a couple of months ago and asked me if I'd like to do a podcast with Greg, who is the OG of film breakdown analysis, of course, of ESPN's NFL Matchup Show and NFL Films. Greg is one of the smartest minds in the sport, and so with this podcast, every Wednesday we're going to have the opportunity to spend a lot of time on the Titans, of course. This first episode is just an AFC South preview. But we're going to have the opportunity to go into depth in a way that radio segments don't really allow for, to basically break down the plays that change the game each and every week for the Titans and the biggest games in the NFL. So we're fired up about it, and I think people are going to enjoy that as well. And if they can't get enough Cosell there, they can get him on the Zone every week as well, because I know he does 3HL every Thursday too. So we're excited about it, and I appreciate the plug.
No doubt. Part of the Zone's all new podcast network of podcasts. There's just podcasts coming out of our ears over here. By the way, you can also podcast all of the shows. So just however you consume us, remember you can consume us that way, as well as all of the new content via podcast as well, like The Install and the soccer show that Lucas does, and all of them. It's all great stuff. And Buck Reising is also on this radio station every day before Blaine and Mickey, and he joins Alex Apple and myself right now.
Buck, Titans training camp schedule out today. I'm presuming that you've seen it. I think I heard you speaking about it on your own show just briefly. What do you think about the Titans not having fans? I know that that's partly because of, sure, the ongoing pandemic, also some significant construction going on over there. And one of the questions that I've been asked by a couple of people is, what are things looking like over at St. Thomas Sports Park? I think a lot of people were hoping that maybe there's a little bit of fan activity allowed because they want to see some of the new things that are getting built over there. Have you had a chance to look at that stuff in depth at all? What can you tell us about some of the new toys over there?
Well, so, from what I understand, they're significantly behind on the renovations that they're doing at St. Thomas Sports Park. I haven't been over there. I live pretty close to it, but I haven't been over there since mandatory minicamp concluded in the middle of June. They're basically building a wing for media and season ticket holders to be able to watch practice in some regard, people that sponsor it, like official partners of the team and things of that nature. I know that Mike Keith and Coach Mack and Amy Wells are getting a new media studio and media situation in that wing, but they're basically moving everything that's not football as far away as humanly possible from the actual football side of things itself. So I mean, there's no way that they could have done it. It's hard enough for us to get in and out of there. To try and coordinate fans along with that, it's just not plausible. So, I mean, it sucks for fans who want to come out and see Julio Jones and A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, because this is a team that's got actual buzz in a way that the Titans don't normally do. So I understand the frustration, and there I would have hoped initially that there would have been the opportunity to have fans out at Nissan Stadium for another practice, but their schedule, with the way that Garth Brooks and Nashville SC and the Music City Grand Prix taking place all over the course of next month, it's not plausible to have fans this year. So I get it. I get why they have to do it. I get why fans aren't happy about it, but tough.
I'm glad they're going to have training camp for bodes well for the Titans defense, if nothing else. I think last year not having training camp, doing the virtual thing, you lose Dean Pease, you have new voices in the room trying to come in and install their way. I think the first thing that's impacted by, you look at it, scoring was up across the league last year. It was the same way after the lockout. When you miss time, you miss ability to be together, I think defenses are impacted first. I've not heard the Titans use that very much as an excuse. But do you think that is perhaps as beneficial to the defense as anything? I mean, the offense didn't seem to miss a beat. And I wish I knew better football, why the defenses were so much more keenly impacted. Perhaps you could enlighten me there. But it will really be the first full off season post Dean Pease that the Titans defense has had.
Yeah, I mean, the tackling sucked last year, and that's because they didn't have the opportunity, like you're saying, to rep things out. It's not like they're going full contact and tackling at practice in the NFL with the way that the rules are set up, but it certainly played a factor. And offense is up because crowd noise was non-existent, and quarterbacks could go on the road and dice defenses up like 7-on-7 because there was no home field advantage last year to bog offenses down. Also, offenses down, and also holding penalties were way down. They just weren't. I don't really have a good explanation for that, other than they weren't calling them as much, which created yet more offense. So there's a great many reasons why the defense should be better, but more than anything, more than practice, more than in-person meetings. And by the way, there's still a majority, a big majority of the Titans players that aren't vaccinated. So it's not like their lives are going to get a lot easier in terms of the classroom work and stuff like that. Like these guys who for whatever their reasons are, and I understand that there are reasons that people choose not to be vaccinated for whatever their personal reasons are. But for the ones that don't have a good reason, it just seems exceedingly stupid for them to not do this, because it sounds like their lives are going to be hell inside that facility, even as they're all practicing together on the same practice field. So, I mean, between that probably still playing a role, and the fact that they've got largely new players, which, by all accounts is a big issue that they had. They didn't feel like the players that they had last year were executing the defense that they were calling well enough. So they got new players. And so this will be the opportunity for Shane Bowen and Mike Vrabel and Jim Schwartz and whoever the hell else has a hand in this thing to get things right, because they need it in a bad way.
I'm with Buck Reising of the Buck Reising Show and the Install, and with A to Z Sports and all the other places you can find Buck Reising. Is Ryan Tannehill a system quarterback, Buck? I know you've discussed that this week.
Yes. Yes is the answer. All quarterbacks are system quarterbacks. Ryan Tannehill is a system quarterback because they all are. That's what they're taught. That's how they're coached. They're coached within a system. So the term I had somebody make this comparison yet last night in the primetime show, that saying system quarterback and game manager are similar to lobbing a phrase out there like defund the police without actually understanding what is going into something like that. You're just using trigger words and trigger phrases to piss people off so you can start a fight about it on the internet. It made me laugh out loud when they made that comparison, because it's so spot on for a great many reasons. But with the Tannehill situation, I mean, it is clear that the system that is built around him and built for him here in Tennessee, at least under Arthur Smith, was playing to his strengths in a much, much more substantial way than what Adam Gase had run in Miami and what the several offensive coordinators that they had down there in Miami with Tannehill were able to do. It doesn't hurt that he's got a great collection of talent around him, a great offensive line in front of him. So it's hard for Ryan Tannehill to not look better than he did as a Dolphin. But Ryan Tannehill, Tom Brady is a system quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is a system quarterback. Now, what you do outside of the system makes a difference too. Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, they're the quarterbacks who make great plays when they're not playing within the confines of the scheme. It's those kind of game-changing plays that define just how much further you're able to take your team outside of what has been built for you and around you. Tannehill has that ability, and he's been able to improvise as well. But for what Tannehill is, the Titans, at least with Arthur Smith, had him figured out pretty well. It will now be incumbent upon Todd Downing to make sure that there is some kind of sustainability to it.
Buck, who do you think will be the Titans' backup quarterback? Deshaun Kaiser seemed to get a little pub for making some strides. Hadn't played in a game in 3 years. Or are you still betting on Logan Woodside?
No, Kaiser's going to be the backup. Logan Woodside stinks. It's unfortunate for him, but he's not good at professional football. Kaiser's not either, but at least he's better.
Tom Brady's good at professional football. What if somebody told you today that he threw for 4,633 yards and 40 touchdowns, won the Super Bowl in his 40s without an MCL functioning in one of his legs? What would you say to that?
I would say that I'm going to remove strawberries from my diet, and the only kind of tequila I'm going to drink anymore is avocado tequila, because apparently that's how you stay young forever and win Super Bowls, so many that you can toss the Super Bowl trophy from boat to boat in a victory parade and just not give a damn about anything. So, I mean, we had some people chime in on my show today about this. It is possible to play, especially if you're not a mobile quarterback, and nobody is making the argument that Brady is.
Right.
You can play through an injury like that as long as the tear is not. I mean, it's not like he was dealing with a complete tear based on the reporting that the Tampa Bay Times put out. So it sounds like it was manageable. The thing that is the red flag with it is that he wasn't on the injury report all year long. So either Tampa's medical staff is incompetent, or Brady is seeking outside help, which he has been known to do with this doctor that's not really a doctor, Alex Guerrero, in going through his rehabilitation process, which, I mean, it bothered Bill Belichick enough to be one of the reasons that there was a rift created between those two. And also they had Guerrero on the sidelines, which I'm sure Bill wasn't happy about. But, I mean, it doesn't matter, because Brady can still throw for more passing yards than Ryan Tannehill, win more Super Bowls than anybody, win as many NFC championships as Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers have won in their career, and do it all in 1 year, because he can.
Buck Reising, our guest here on Blaine and Mickey, with my guest, Alex Apple.
Buck, when you think about players that have left a team, we wanted to ask you this because Mickey has come up with a great topic. We talked a little bit at the beginning of the show about transcendent players. Maybe Pecorine is one in Nashville sports, Steve McNair. Players that have left a team, and you've never considered that team to be the same again. Somebody called in and said Michael Jordan, and that's a great example because the Bulls literally haven't been the same again. Is there one maybe from your childhood or your life so far that once player X left this team, that was it? I never considered that team the same again, whether I quit being a fan of them or not.
I'm bad at sports history questions, so this is probably I don't mean to cop out, but I am not going to be able to pull a name out the way that you guys I think would want. I mean, the Colts have been fine without Peyton Manning. The Patriots we'll see what happens, but I think they're going to be okay without Brady. I mean, everybody's so replaceable in sports these days. Michael Jordan is a different situation. Oh, well, I mean, I guess the Cavs with LeBron, I guess that's probably an easy one. Like, the Cavs stink when LeBron's not there, and then LeBron goes back, plays for them twice, and wins a championship with them once, and it makes all the difference in the world. So, at least the Miami Heat have been able to play for an NBA Finals and an NBA championship since LeBron left. The Cavs are just crap. Where it seems, even when Kyrie was there, they sucked. So LeBron and the Cavs probably the best answer I could pull from.
Derrick Henry's deal was signed a year ago yesterday. How did you feel about it the day you found out? How do you feel about it 1 year later?
When I found out, like, I was one of these people that was anti-pay Derrick Henry, which was stupid, in retrospect, for a great many reasons. But, like, even when I saw the deal, just because and not anything to do with Derrick personally, but just based off historical precedent, like second contracts for running backs don't age well. And it turns out that Derrick doesn't get hurt, and Derrick is not like any other running back that we see at the position, because he's an actual running back and not like a running back / wide receiver like Kamara or McCaffrey Zeke is, a different matter entirely. That contract looks like hell. But with Derrick, the way that it was structured when they announced it, it was even somebody who was anti-pay the running back couldn't be pissed about it, because he was playing for $6 million that year, so they could afford to go out and sign other people and pay Ryan Tannehill as well. The way they spent that money with Jadeveon Clowney and Vic Beasley ultimately didn't pan out, but at least it was structured in a way that was tolerable, and he's still way undervalued given the way that he produces, because the top of the market with Kamara and McCaffrey and Zeke and I'm blanking on the Minnesota Vikings running back name from Florida State,
Dalvin Cook.
The way that these guys are paid, they don't impact their game and the team the way that Derrick Henry does. It's one in a million as far as I'm concerned, because you don't see athletes like Derrick, especially at that position where you're getting in a car wreck basically every play. But 1 year later, it looks like one of the best contracts in football, and even somebody who was against paying a running back a second contract has to look at that and be like, yeah, he's worth it because he's different.
Well, Buck, happy early birthday. We won't talk to you again before then. I'm not allowed to come in the station, so I won't see you before then, but I do want to tell you happiest of birthdays, and I look forward to seeing you in person again at some point again in our lives.
Who do I got to yell about that, by the way? Like, why the hell are you not – why the hell do I not get to see you every day when I'm walking out of my show? Like, this pisses me off.
I don't know. I'm working on my second vaccine. Maybe that'll open up some doors for me. I'm just a few days away from vaccine number 2, so I'll file the card and I'll come see you then.
All right. Love to see it. Thanks, boys.
All right. Buck Reising again, Two Rivers Ford, making that happen, home of the non-commissioned salespeople. When we come back, Derrick Henry did sign his contract a year ago yesterday. I just happened to discover that last night, looking for something completely different, and figure that out. Interesting, because at the time, I think Titans fans felt good about it, but there seemed to be a whole lot of people outside the building who didn't. Be curious to hear from those people today and what the don't pay the running back crowd was saying. We'll get into that a little bit next. Blaine and Mickey with special guest Alex Apple hanging out. Before we go, though, we got our tickets to give away. We've been giving away tickets to the Music City Grand Prix. It is time once again to give tickets away. The Zone Summer of Fun continues. We're sending you to fun stuff, including the Music City Grand Prix, which is just fantastic. This music, and there's concerts, and there's multiple races, and it all happens in downtown Nashville. So caller 5 now wins a pair of single-day tickets to the inaugural Music City Machine Grand Prix. It's happening August 6th through 8th in downtown Nashville. Here's a number to call to be number 5 at 615-737-1045. If you don't win those tickets, you want to buy some, hit up musiccitygp.com.
Want exclusive Titans coverage? God! Just say, hey, Alexa, play 104.5 The Zone.
Alex if you were my son. So I'm the official.
We have different last names, but
what I know. Maybe you're adopted. Was it Marcus who said that?
Mark in the chat.
Mark,
I need to be looking at the chat while we're watching this. I mean, while we're going in the show.
May I ask how old you are, Alex?
30. I'm older than Buck.
No, well, Mark.
I don't know if that says anything, but as he was saying he was 28, I was just thinking about my own 30th birthday, which I didn't celebrate it with quite the zest that he seems to be celebrating 28.
Well, I mean, age-wise, we could make that work, Mark, but you can still stuff it, my friend. So we do
I don't know if
call.
that's more insulting to me or to you that you could potentially be a 30-year-old's father. I mean, I don't look that old.
No, that's not insulting at all. That guy I had no idea you were 30. I'm sure that guy didn't either. So maybe we should both take it as a compliment. That
yes.
Maybe he thought we were both younger than what we are. Who do we have on the line, Lucas? Did you say? Let's hit the phone. 615-737-1045. Robert, what's going on, man?
Good afternoon, guys. How you doing?
Hey, man, doing great.
My athlete that changed my world was Dan Marino, Miami Dolphins.
Ooh, you're the second person. I got a tweet about that. I got a tweet about that today, Robert. Somebody said the Miami Dolphins have never been the same to me since Dan Marino. That dude, Robert, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Let me ask you this. I know we were talking about age, but I'm curious. How old are you? And there's a reason why I'm asking you.
I'm sorry?
How old are you?
I'm 55 years old.
Okay. So do you go back at your age, because you and me are about you're a little bit older than me, not much. Does your Dolphin fandom go back to Don Shula and Bob Greasy and, Bob Kuchenberg and Nick Bonaconti? Do you go back to that era?
Yes, I do.
The Dolphins are so interesting, and here's why. Gosh, this is so interesting. There are people who are our age and your age and a little older and maybe a little bit younger whose Dolphin fandom goes back to the 70s because the Dolphins were great. And then there's a whole bunch of people who were born in the 70s, who were kids in the 80s, who are Dolphins fans for a completely different reason. And it's all Dan Marino. But the Dolphins they harvested two completely generations of people to be their fans. They're one of the great case studies to me of fandom, Robert. That's so interesting that you called, man. We appreciate the phone call today.
You have a good day, guys.
Yes, sir. See, I grew up with people. If you're my age, if you didn't have an NFL team in your area, you got the Steelers and the Cowboys shoved down your throat every Sunday of your life. The Steelers played at noon, which is 1:00 Eastern. The Cowboys played at 3:00. And that's what you got, unless they were in one of the, Monday Night Football. That was the primetime game. It was Monday Night Football. That was it. You had a noon game, a 3:00 game. You had Monday Night Football. So the only exception to that rule that had a large group of fans were Dolphins fans, like the guys who were a year or two ahead of me in school, because they're like, dude, the Dolphins went undefeated, man. Bob Greasy, man. Paul Warfield, Zonka, Kick, Mercury. People were huge on the Dolphins. And then all these people who were born about 10 years after me, so the people who are kind of in between you and me in age, they're all Dan Marino fans. So many Dolphins fans walking the earth for completely different reasons.
Well, my dad is a little older than you, but when he was growing up, same way, limited selection. He loved the Minnesota Vikings because they had great uniforms and they had Fran Tarkenton. And he's got this old rhyme, something like, it's about Joe Namath and the Jets. It's something like, Joe, you always make a good show. The writers are adoring how you lead your team in scoring, and we don't mean playing football. Broadway Joe. He would love that if I just said that. I hope he was listening. But he loved, those are the only guys that he saw. Like you saw Namath, you saw Fran Tarkenton. And then as he started dating my mom, who was they were all from Cincinnati, he started liking the Bengals. But I think it's so interesting to hear stories from people that lived here before the Titans came to town. Yeah, you think it's a hodgepodge collective right now of people that, it's a place where everyone's moving from everywhere. And so it's nothing to go downtown and see a Javonte Adams jersey on someone. I mean, it was even more so that the case then. But I also think that's kind of neat because every Titans fan came probably from a different fan base. And this goes back to the discussion we were having. Like Steve McNair cemented half the city, 80% of Nashville, as a diehard Titans fan immediately.
Yep.
The first home game against the Bengals was great. They come from behind. They score like 30 points. They win. It's an exciting game. Music City Miracle. I mean, you couldn't have drawn it up better if you were trying to ensure that, Larry or Vic Apple, my dad, wasn't going to go back to the Bengals. There was no going back after that for people that were in Nashville and experienced that.
Well, we are going to discuss this coming up at hour number 2. A player who left via trade, free agency, or retired like Pecorine, and that team was never the same for you. We're getting responses on Twitter. We already had a bunch of phone calls. We haven't even started the segment officially yet. Did want to hit this, though. Yesterday was a year since Derrick Henry signed his contract. As of today in the NFL, his average value per year, because this is what it was 4 years, $50 million, $12.5 million. That's 5th in the league, Alex. So per year, he's the 5th highest paid. Now you get into total dollar amounts and things like that. Zeke Elliott, $90 million. Christian McCaffrey makes 16. Zeke Elliott, 15. Kamara, 15. Dalvin Cook makes 12.6. Derrick Henry outrushed him by 470 yards last year. He was second in the league, Dalvin Cook, and Derrick Henry beat him by almost 500 yards, 470. Derrick Henry, 12.5 average value. And there were people who killed that contract nationally.
Buck Reising included, evidently. And we have a statement out from Richard Sherman about what happened a couple of days ago. It's kind of interesting.
Let's get to that when we come back. Seriously, if you've been following the Bleacher Report, had the final move the Titans needed to make this offseason as sign Richard Sherman in an article about final moves for all teams. I don't think that's going to happen now, but he's been in some trouble. We've been trying to track that. We've been trying not to jump to any conclusions. Blaine and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, but he has released a statement. We'll read that to you next. Also, for all you crazy golf nuts, we'll update the British Open. Let you know. I'm sorry, the Open. I'm going to get 100 tweets. I called it the British Open. The Open Championship. The Open. I will never say British Open again. I did not mean that. It is not the British Open. It is the Open Championship. I'm aware of that. Please don't tweet me. We'll be right back.
Coming up today on the 3HL.
Trash Talk Friday. Y'all got any trash talk you want to throw out there?
I most definitely got some trash talk I want to throw out there. I bet on Dustin Johnson. I need him to handle this business in the open instead of Ustays.
You can't even say it. We're also going to check in with Chris Lowe. We've got all these college football media days going on or coming up. Chris Lowe will join us as well.
Lots of sports, lots of laughs.
Today, starting at 3 p.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
All right, it's Friday. You need to make some plans. And I don't mean like plans for dinner, although you should also make plans for dinner tonight, make plans for the weekend. But here's the plans you need to make. If you don't do it today, do it Monday. Contact PAI if you're a man or a woman and you're dealing with hair loss. Seriously, stop doing nothing and do something. Stop doing nothing. Matter of fact, you could just cyberloaf your way to some great knowledge right now. You're probably at work. You're on your computer. Heck, maybe you're listening to us on the computer. Crack open another window. Go to WeGrowHair.com. You can see all the different options that they have for men and women who are losing their hair. Maybe you just started losing it. Maybe somebody pointed out. Maybe a family member cared enough to point it out to you. Maybe you've known for a long time. You've been trying to cover it up. Well, stop all that mess. Just go to PAI. Keep the hair that you've got. Get back the hair that you've lost. It's all there waiting for you. Stop doing nothing. Do something. Again, WeGrowHair.com. Or call them. It's a no obligation appointment to just go find out what's going on at PAI. 615-376-6010. The only thing you'll regret is that you didn't call PAI sooner. shining, and it is Friday because it's a Friday show, which means that it's Friday, and we are happy to have you with us on what day? Friday. Blaine is out today, but Alex Apple doing a great job as he always does. Just comes in and he just jumps right in and starts calling plays. He's got the green dot on his helmet, backing up the hitman at safety, doing a fantastic job today. It's been a really fun show. We got a topic that we're going to do in this hour, and a bunch of people have already called. So I'm just going to throw it out there now. Then we're going to read the statement from Richard Sherman. He has made a statement on his behalf. Then we're going to ask you some questions about, do you like hot ham and cheese from Arby's? And is it okay to say British Open? Because some people say no. And Lucas winked at me when he said that in his update, because he's going to get some tweets now from people who say, it's not the British Open. It is the Open Championship, Lucas, you goofy bloke. And so.
Was that the voice of public opinion right there?
Nah, it's more like Thurston Howell. But anyway, I'm sure I'll find out who it does and doesn't sound like via Twitter once again, because Twitter is great at telling you everything. People get big mad about British Open, the Open Championship. So I said British Open one day.
When did that change, Mickey? I've been watching golf my whole life. I don't even remember it changed. It's just like 1 year it just happened.
Louis Oosthuizen atop the leaderboard at that rascal right now, though, 11 under. There you go. That's your update. People are waking up at 1:30 or whatever. Are you that crazy about golf, Alex, that you're doing that? Are you doing that?
I do like golf, and I may get up and then get out of bed instead of like laying there and looking at my phone for 20 minutes to watch a little bit of it this morning, Saturday or Sunday. But I'm going to get up at, I don't know, 6:30, 7 o'clock and turn it on. But I do the same thing with like Wimbledon. I actually really like it when there's a sport on in the morning.
Well, I'm not talking about like 6. I'm talking about like
no,
1
I'm not getting
2.
No. The answer to that is unequivocally no.
Like soccer nuts, like Lucas, I can see him grabbing the microphone eagerly. They wake up in the middle of the night to watch these matches.
I like it when I remember it, but then if you like forget that that's on by 11 o'clock, like you've missed it.
I'm with you, Alex, that there's nothing better than like a good wake up morning sport. Formula One for me is what I was going to say.
You love it with soccer.
Yeah, well, soccer, like if a World Cup is happening, it's every 4 years, and it's happening in like Russia, and games are at 6 a.m. I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. to watch it, but I'm not going to do that on a weekly basis. But like Formula One, you're talking like 8, 9 in the morning. Pretty perfect to wake up about a few laps into the race and flip it on. It's a great way to start your Sunday. The British British Grand Prix on Sunday.
I'll be flipping on.
No, I might be flipping it off.
Come on. You're missing out. You're missing out. I'm just telling you.
No, I do enjoy any kind of motor racing for sure. But I'm talking about the people who love it enough that they would wake up at 1:45 in the morning or set an alarm and they would stay up and watch something like this. And honestly,
I don't know many people doing that.
I asked myself some hard questions this morning. What would you wake up at 1:30 in the morning or 2 o'clock? Would you go to sleep? I'm going to go to sleep at 10 or whatever. I'm going to sleep 3 hours. I'm going to get up and watch this. Maybe like if the Cardinals opened in some faraway country and that's when it was on, maybe I would watch it. Maybe I would just try to stay up and watch it. I don't even know. I mean, if the Titans did it, we would all have to watch. It would be our jobs, and we would have just sheer the morbid curiosity of the team that we follow, the team from our town. But I can't really think of anything else. And so then I asked myself the ultimate question for somebody who's grown up down south. What if it was the college football opener and they agreed to do it in some faraway land? And let's say it was good, like it was this Alabama and Miami matchup, or usually it's Notre Dame and somebody. I'm not trying to pick on anybody's team, but like two big names, not Fresno State and New Mexico
Hawaii,
State.
Right.
No offense to any other people, because I came from I could have easily mentioned my own school, but I'm trying not to mention it more than once a show. Arkansas State.
That?
Oh, that's 2.
I don't know. That's the hard question I'm asking myself.
No, I don't think I would. If the Vols were in it, or if your team's in it, TCU, I went to TCU, if TCU's in it, yeah.
I mean, if Arkansas State, that's 3. If they were in it, I'd get up and watch. They're not going to be in it, though, I don't think, because nobody's going to put them on a situation like that. But that's the hard question I'm asking myself. I mean, I love the Lord. I love my family. I'd get up at 2 o'clock and do anything for my Lord or my family. But I just don't know. I mean, I'm just not going to watch Louis Oosthuizen in the middle of the night. I mean, he seems like a fine fella. He won the Open once. He's been second in everything else. What a fantastic, awesome money list guy he's been. But I don't love anything that much.
I do love when he tees off at the British Open and the guy in his British accent goes, now on the tee from South Africa, Louis Oosthuizen. It's just a perfect name for that British accent. Can we read this Richard Sherman statement? We've left anybody that cares about that hanging for a second. I'm going to read it.
Well, it's a tease, man. They were still being teased, and we're talking here. This is the statement from Richard Sherman, though. The story happening earlier this week. He was booked, investigated in a domestic case. 911 call from a residence, I guess, of his father-in-law. Where his wife was. And there was police activity, and he was taken to this King County Correctional Facility. But we've kind of been awaiting more word and maybe to hear from him. This is what Richard Sherman said about his own case. I'm deeply remorseful for my actions on Tuesday night. I behaved in a manner I'm not proud of. I have been dealing with some personal challenges over the last several months, but that is not an excuse for how I acted. The importance of mental and emotional health is extremely real, and I vow to get the help I need. I appreciate all the people who have reached out in support of me and my family, including our community here in Seattle. I'm grateful to have such an amazing wife, family, and support system to lean on during this time. That's the statement released from Richard Sherman.
I mean, and that puts it on mental health, and I think that's what I assumed it was. I think it's irresponsible because you just don't know, and you're feeding into a narrative that's totally based on speculation. When you start talking about CTE and concussions related to this, we have no idea if it's related to that. Antonio Brown, no idea. I mean, these guys could just be eccentric. It's hard to be premier athletes in a way that we don't really understand. It's not hard when you're talking about cashing those checks, but it is hard to play at that level and experience that in isolation because a lot of times people don't know what you go through. And Richard Sherman, is an interesting case here because smart guy, went to Stanford, would bet he is as smart or smarter than most of the guys playing in that league from just a sheer intellect. He's probably smarter than all of us on this radio station. I do get that impression, but puts it squarely on mental health. And you hope that's all it is, and you just hope that he can get that right. I think regardless of where you're at in life, great example. You never know when something like that's going to hit you. And we would never look at him and guess that, kind of makes it a little bit sad for what he's going through.
Yeah, and just there's a family involved, there's kids involved. Just anytime, I mean, if it's Richard Sherman, if it's any citizen who's going through something like that and has something like that, and the 911 call is just gut wrenching to hear, and with his wife calling in, and just everything about it was just awful to hear. And he's a public person, so stuff like this happens with other people, and maybe we don't hear about it, but when it involves a very prominent professional athlete like Richard Sherman, who's been at the top of his game now for, a long, long time in the highest profile sports league in America, we are going to hear all the gory details. So,
did you listen to that 911 call, Mick?
I did.
Did you not think that the dispatcher having, none of it and yelling at his wife, who is obviously frightened and feeling threatened, was a little bit odd? Dispatchers have a hard job. I don't want that job, wouldn't sign up for it. And I appreciate that. But that came off as really strange to me. When this is a tangent, but when I listened to that 911 call, immediately the dispatcher is saying, be quiet, stop talking, you got to listen to me. That was weird to me. I mean, I don't know if anybody else felt that way. Maybe I was being too harsh on the dispatcher. I know that you have to get people to calm down. But that made me think I'd have some words for the dispatcher.
There were people who responded when I saw it posted. And if you haven't heard it, you can see it out anywhere there's on social media and people respond. And obviously people love to respond to stuff on social media. But they were talking about how the dispatcher spoke to his wife. And there are people in every thread that I read. It's interesting, Alex, and you were a news reporter for a long time, and I was briefly in my early TV career. There were people who were saying, it's a dispatcher's job to hold someone on the line and to get as much information as they could. Now, I agree with you. I didn't, the tone that the dispatcher took, I didn't always understand it. And the way she was kind of scolding his wife, it seemed like. So I don't know. Now, there are all kinds of emergency people and police, and everywhere we go, we have fine people who keep people safe out there who say, hey, we listen to the Zone all day and we appreciate all of them. So maybe somebody who does that job could explain better, this is what she was trying to do. This is why the dispatcher said what they said, because that was at least part of the chat that I saw. So that was, I'm just telling you, that was a narrative side of things that I saw in any chats about it. So I would love to hear from somebody who does that job, though, about it. All right, here's what we got to do. We've already had calls. We've got tweets. I put it on my Facebook page. Here's the question, and we're doing it basically in honor of the retirement this week of Pecorino. We wanted to have some fun, well, always, but we want to have some fun with this particular topic in the second hour of the show. Someone retired or got traded or left your favorite team for whatever reason, and the team was never the same to you. We've had a Dan Marino, Miami Dolphins. Somebody tweeted me and said, when Greg Lloyd left the Steelers, I did not have Greg Lloyd coming up today. No. Michael Jordan, and I asked this question for Jordan fans, was the NBA even the same? We had a tweet, Kobe and the Lakers. Somebody tweeted Barry Sanders and the Lions. Could have been somebody much less famous.
And it could be
Greg
someone
Lloyd.
you hate, too. Like, I think Lucas in our text, I'll just real quick, was talking about when Yadi Molina leaves the Cardinals. Like, I hate the Cardinals. Ever since Brandon Phillips whooped some booty in the, 2011 fight, I've been mad at Yadi Molina and Chris Carpenter ever since. So it can be something that, like, a guy left and you stopped hating that team, too. I mean, a lot of people don't like LeBron, Peyton Manning when they were on the Colts.
Well, we may be on opposite sides of this Yachty deal because I may have an example of my own about Yachty, and it goes very differently. So phone lines are open, 615-737-1045. You can tweet us at Blaine and Mickey. We would love to have you weigh in on this topic. We've already gotten a bunch of phone calls before we've even started it. Let's hear from you. Your player left. Team was never the same for you. And as Alex said, maybe it's somebody you hate. It's up to you, however you want to roll with it. Blaine and Mickey, special guest Alex Apple, 1045 The Zone.
Every great Titans moment happens here. Your home for Titans football and the flagship for Titans radio. 1045 The Zone.
and we're sending our text messages back and forth this morning and told him, in honor of Pekka, I had this idea that I'd been holding on to for a show topic, and it's a team that has never been the same for you since player X left. And I think there's some Predator fans. They love the Preds, but it's never going to feel quite the same without Pekka there. He's been there forever, 13 years. I mean, 15 with the organization, but 13 running the show for Pekka. We've got one caller on the line, but we've got lines open, 615-737-1045. We've got, is it Robert? Eric, sorry, we had Robert already. Eric from Dixon. Eric, who is that player and team for you that's never going to be the same?
Well, growing up as a kid in the 70s, I was a huge Big Red Machine fan, Cincinnati Reds. And then when free agency started, when Pete Rose left, that was like a dagger through the heart, regardless of what you think of Pete Rose now. But, you know, he was everything if you were a Cincinnati Reds fan, and then a couple others left later, but it was just never, ever the same. Baseball was really never the same either, if you know what I mean. So I think that's one of the biggest ones, especially in baseball. He was one of the first big stars that left and went to another team.
I love that, Eric. My mom's family grew up in Cincinnati, big Reds fans. I've got the Cincinnati Enquirer sign from when he broke the hit record. He's standing on first base, signed it. I absolutely agree with that, because talk about a team that's never replicated that success other than 1 year with Lou Piniella in 1990, the year before I was born. I've been a Reds fan for my entire life. I've never seen them win a playoff series. I suffer through the Reds every year. Still love them. Still could really go for some Skyline chili right now. But that's another great example. I think a part of it is the player has to represent for you in your, like, you know, whether it's your childhood or like your early, like formative adult years when like you can go to games by yourself and make your own choices, you know, like an era that just left. And like you can't go to, you know, like for example, a Reds game and feel the same mystique you felt at that point. I mean, I think that's what these transcendent players feel like. So maybe when I was given my example earlier, like McNair in that respect is not a great example, because the Titans, like the people that loved the Titans fell off a little bit during the bad years and are back now, still probably feel the same that they felt for the Titans when McNair and them were really good. And Blaine was on the team and Eddie George and all that.
I don't know, man. Seeing guys like Blaine come back in an Eagles uniform and seeing McNair come back in a Ravens uniform, Derek Mason in a Ravens uniform, some of those are pretty brutal.
Well, particularly McNair and Mason in a Ravens uniform were kind of tough. I have the only Pete Rose Expos card ever made. It's a Donruss from 1 year. That's another fun fact for Eric that just called in.
A lot of people weighing in on this on Twitter. By the way, again, phone lines are open. Hit us with, again, who's that player? Who is that team? Mom to ZGM. I don't know what all that means on Twitter, but Mom says, I grew up a Niners fan. So, yeah. Now, Joe Montana, Dwight Clark. I mean, I can only imagine, because I always loved Joe Montana. I can only imagine being a Niners fan and seeing Joe Montana walk out the door and go to Kansas City and what that was like for Niners fan. Matt said, as a fellow Cards fan who grew up on Whitey Ball, because here, mine is Yadi Molina. And I get it. I'm older. It's not like he was playing when I was a kid, but he's been there forever. I mean, he's been the everyday catcher since 2004, I think. Matt said, will it be all that different than Willie McGee being traded or Ozzie retiring? I mean,
the Cardinals seem to be a great organization, though.
They keep turning it over. Albert Pujols can leave. Yeah, Albert Pujols can leave. Although now, since Pujols left, they haven't won another World Series since 2011. But for me, it's Yadier Molina, and I think part of me is, and you mentioned it being a younger thing. Rick in the chat, by the way, says NASCAR was never the same without Dale Earnhardt. I think there's a bunch of people who feel that way. Again, that's an entire sport that was affected by someone leaving the sport, although he went to the big racetrack in the sky. Rest in peace, Dale Earnhardt. But that certainly whole sport has never been the same for a lot of people. But this is weird for me. When I was a kid, I would miss those people, but I seem to be more resilient in getting over it. The older I get, the less I seem to like change, especially big change. I like things to be familiar. And the idea that Yadier Molina is not the catcher of the Cardinals, to me is, again, it's just such a jarring thing. And he's, 39 years old now. So he's not going to be the catcher for much longer, if even after this year. But the older I get, the more I seem to hold on to things.
Well,
so that's why he came up for me.
Let me hit you with this one that I just thought of. There is nobody, I swear, you cannot call this show right now and tell me that this program is not different since this person left, because it is by very definition of it. Grew up a Vols fan. Ever since Phil Fulmer has left, it's never been the same. I'm not saying I don't love him. I still love him. But that program has never been the same. Phil Fulmer leaves. We're living in a different world. A world that the program is not on that good a foundation. I think he's the perfect example of, also the perfect example of, you didn't realize how good you had it until that was gone.
And I've always said this about Coach Fulmer. You knew as a fan, you were invested in it, or as a graduate of Tennessee, you were invested in it. But so was he. Literally, the man invested his whole life in Tennessee, in the University of Tennessee. So absolutely. And when he came back, there were people who cheered the move, and there were people who killed the move when he came back as AD. There were people who said, this is never going to work. It's going to end poorly. Others were thrilled that it happened. Unfortunately, it didn't have the ending that anybody would want for Fulmer there. He gets his parachute and he gets his money, but I'm sure people wish things could have ended differently from him. But that's a great example as well. Nick says on Twitter, when Big Papi retired, it hurt. The first player I really followed since Slammin' Sammy. Brian pulled out another one. This was a little more obscure. The Pats and the Jets, he said, each when Curtis Martin left. They were both instantly bad. He said, interesting anecdote. His contract is often discussed as the last one before running back. The market changed. It's still top 10 or so for running backs this many years later. Here's another one that I thought was interesting, an entire sport. Derek weighed in. And if you're just joining us, what athlete leaving what team hit you the hardest? The team was never the same for you. Derek said, it's not a team sport, but for me, it's men's tennis. Once Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic officially hang it up, there's no young players starting to pile up Grand Slams. Murray and Wawrinka have 3, but they are past their prime. So there have been several people who've named entire sports. Earnhardt Sr., his passing with NASCAR. I had a guy I was talking to this morning, who was a big Jordan fan, and we both agreed for a lot of people, the NBA's never been the same without Michael Jordan, just as a whole.
I think the NBA will get crushed after LeBron leaves too. Mickey, they already had worse ratings for a finals game than the MLB All-Star game, which is not even a good All-Star game. Home Run Derby was really good this year. People tuned in to see Shohei Ohtani, sure. But once you lose LeBron, I almost think it's like LeBron kept the NBA afloat, or kept the trend line more neutral as opposed to trending down. Is your average guy going to tune in to watch Giannis play? He's great. I love basketball. I might, but I don't. I love basketball, and I don't even watch every finals game. I coach basketball. I don't watch every finals game. That seems a big problem to me. What do you do once LeBron's out of here? What replaces that? It's a star-driven league.
We got Lamont up next from Mount Juliet. That's a great question, though, because how much longer will Steph Curry last after LeBron? Oh, he dropped. All right. Sorry, Lamont. Call back, man. We'll get you on 615-737-1045. Steph Curry, I think, is that guy for some people. He's the big box office, the guy worth watching. The thing about LeBron is he's so polarizing. It goes back to what you said before the commercial. I think there are people who like to watch LeBron lose. That they would, like you were talking about as a Reds fan, you hate Yadier Molina. Like, the Cardinals will never be the same because of your hatred of the guy who I love the most is the guy that you hate the most.
Yeah.
But I think LeBron changes the game because to some people he's the hero and to some people he's the villain. And it's hard to be both. It's hard to be both in sports. He's both. and he's always been that way. And I don't know if it's because he's not Michael Jordan, because nobody is, or it's because he passes sometimes at the ends of games and they want him to shoot every time. Or it's that horrible decision thing that he did that made people mad that they never got over. But he's the rare guy who's polarizing. Like you talked about with Haight, people will be mad when he leaves just because they like seeing him lose.
There's very few people that I think are as undeservingly hated as LeBron. Are people still mad about the decision? I mean,
yeah.
Why? Mickey, why? He got up there and announced a new team. Was it flawless? No. But he also raised money for the Boys and Girls Club. I mean, I don't get that. I've never understood the hate for LeBron. Brandon Rushing on YouTube has got two good ones. Clearly a Red Sox fan, Johnny Damon and Mookie Betts. And I bet there's a lot of people, like when you have a local guy that leaves a team, it's never the same for you. You liked Mookie because he's Nashvilleian. You'll pick up the Sox while he's there, and now you're off the Sox. That's an interesting phenomenon. But I think that goes back to a fanhood that's really more like the younger generation, that's largely a TikTok highlights-driven fanhood where you're more inclined to root for the player than the team. I'm a team guy.
I think the thing that hurt the NBA the most, and I've said this before, it's been a while since I've said it, but I really believe this. When anybody leaves the NFL, I don't care who it is, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana, it doesn't matter. Whoever leaves, the ratings, they don't go down. The league continues to promote. It just doesn't matter. There may be people who the team is never the same, but the league never loses any momentum. It's never, Alex, the NFL is never looking for the next anybody. It's never, ever looking for the next anybody. And the NBA has spent years looking for the next Michael Jordan.
You're right.
Whether it was Grant Hill or it was Kobe, who's the closest thing that we've seen, or whether it's LeBron, who's not like Jordan. They're different players. The NFL's never looking for the next anybody, and the NBA has constantly been looking for the next Jordan. I know we got Mike, we got Bill. Have you got one, Lucas, you said?
When Joey Chestnut hangs it up, hot dog eating will never be the same.
Lucas,
hey, they replaced
you're gonna have to eat 5 more
like
pieces
that.
of cheese over that, Lucas.
You got Kobayashi out of there. Hot dog eating keeps churning out stars. I'm not worried for hot dog eating.
Well, if I ate that many hot dogs, I'd be churning out something you wouldn't want to know about. Let's get Mike from Clarksville and then Bill from Lebanon. Mike, thanks for calling and joining the discussion.
Now I stand here in my garage looking at my Trek bicycle, and I think of how much I'm 67. I still bike recreationally, but I've loved bicycling all my life. And Lance Armstrong, I was a defender of his to the final moment. And then he said the words, and it destroyed the whole thing.
Ooh,
gosh,
God, that is a great example.
And just a total, different wrinkle of this deal. You talk about changing the narrative. The way he left, sorry, people who defended me like Mike, I lied, I cheated.
And you almost ruined the whole sport. You took the whole sport down with you.
Yeah.
Boxing's another great example like that. If Don King had never been born, there'd still probably be great boxers.
Let's get Bill in from Lebanon next. You want to join the discussion, 615-737-1045. Bill, who and what is it for you?
I'm a huge Cowboy fan, so it's probably Troy Aikman, because you look at all the dumpster fire quarterbacks, Quincy Carter, Chad Hutchinson, all these idiots that they've had over and over again. They haven't replaced Troy. I don't think Dak's Troy, but, Romo sure as hell wasn't Troy. So my thing is Troy Aikman.
Appreciate the phone call.
But Romo is a better TV guy than Aikman. Romo's got him in the next gig.
On that note, Monday Night Football has never been the same for me since Gruden got back into coaching. Just growing up, it was John Gruden and Mike Tirico. I know you like Mickey. You probably have different when you think Monday Night Football. You think something different.
I think of Howard Cosell. I think of Greg's. He was his uncle. Yeah,
right.
I was growing up through some lean years where it was like Dennis Miller. They were trying to put comedians up there.
Yeah,
Monday Night Football crew has had some interesting evolutions.
I thought Tirico Gruden were an awesome duo. And when Tirico left and Gruden was with Sean McDonough, I didn't like their dynamic. And then when Gruden left, I think it's all been downhill from there.
Why does Monday Night Football stink? Like Booger McFarland, I'm sorry. Horrible. It's the major sports network, and the calls on it stink, and half the time the games are terrible.
It's been terrible matchups. I don't know why that's so hard to get right, but chemistry is just so tough. Yeah. It's just so tough to get the right chemistry, but I don't know why it is. I mean, I don't know why that's so difficult, but it has just been rough for the last few years. And I appreciate anybody who goes and does it, anybody who does their best. This is a hard job. And, Blaine and I were talking about this a couple of days ago, and I said, not everybody likes everybody in the media. And I said, trust me, I have Twitter. I know that there are people who hate my guts. They've gone out of their way to tell me. I mean, that's just the way it is. But that Monday Night Football gig has just been rough the last few years. I mean, why they can't seem to just settle on a pair. I get it. Gruden went back into coaching. It was too much money to turn down. But why they just can't find the right group and settle. And it seems to be like now the network's idea is just throw more people, just put 3 more people on the pregame show.
Like Witten was terrible. They're not throwing the right guys, though, Mick. You could get in there and do a better job than half the guys they put out there.
Well, I mean, thanks. That's quite a vote of confidence.
Because it's so untested. It's like, oh, here's a guy that we know about.
Now, here's a guy. Right.
Jason Witten. He'll be perfect on our premier football broadcast. God forbid we break him in on
with no experience
games. Right.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It seems like they could get it right.
We got another call, right?
Yeah, Darius from Nashville. Darius, thanks for checking in. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. Can you hear me?
Oh, man, we can hear you great.
All right. Awesome. Okay, so it's kind of controversial, whatever people would say, but I don't believe the WWE business has been better since The Rock and Stone Cold and all those 90s guys left. They've been trying to pinch for straws since those guys left, and I believe it's an industry that has not reached the height since those Stone Cold and The Rock days. So I'll hang up and listen.
That's an interesting take. That's a lot of charisma. That's not there anymore. I mean, The Rock, Stone Cold, when you start throwing, and The Rock is the biggest box office star I would think in the world. I mean, I don't know what people are watching in Italy and Greece, but probably Rock's movies dubbed with some other voice over his voice, if that's the way you want to watch it. But that guy's the biggest box office in the world. When he left behind, that's going to leave a void.
And wrestling is such a show. It's not just a sporting event. It's a production. It's a show. Yeah. And to have those kind of characters, but golly, you talk about The Rock. What a career that dude's had. To go from Miami football player, WWE superstar, to now I might be the highest grossing actor in America. I mean, who's over the top of him? Tom Hanks? Tom Hanks could tell me to do anything. I'd probably walk off a bridge if Tom Hanks told me to. But
I mean, probably the Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise would be like they would be the other. They would be maybe in the same stratosphere, because Tom Cruise could say tomorrow, I'm going to make another Mission Impossible. I want 50 million and get it. Tom Hanks is probably that guy too. So the Toms and The Rock.
Yeah.
The Toms and The Rock. All right, when we come back, we got people on the line. Hold. We will get to your calls. We will also call our shot before we go. But Cuzzo Mike, Paul from Franklin, hold. It's a quick break. We'll get right to you right off the top of the next one. You want to join them, 615-737-1045.
The 3HL. Here's what you missed.
Numerous emails to autograph a pair of my used shoes and send them to them.
You ever do it?
Hell no.
That's where we are today, people. What were they going to do with the shoes?
Ron, I don't even want to think about that.
The 3HL with Brent Doherty, Don Davenport, and Ron Slay. This afternoon starting at 3, 104.5 The Zone.
for the Hit Me, and always love hanging out with Double A. Love hanging out with all of you guys and gals who call the show. Got a bunch of tweets still about what team, what player leaves. It's never the same. But let's finish up these last 3 phone calls. Cuzzo Mike, Paul from Franklin, and then Alan. Cuzzo Mike, you are up next.
What's up, fellas? Good show today. Good show, man. Hey, I heard y'all say Don King earlier, and man, I wanted to say, just them exhibition fights, man. Like, just cut it out. It's like some of them are for real, just like celebrity slap fest, and some of them are just a joke to boxing, man. And I say the more they do that, the more boxing is gonna go down. But yeah, that's all I had, man. Appreciate it.
Cuzzo, thanks. We got a tweet from somebody. I got a tweet earlier.
Travesty.
Guy said for him it was Mike Tyson. He said boxing was never the same after Mike Tyson left. And I think, again, boxing has not been the same since Mike Tyson left. Let's squeeze in one more. Paul from Franklin wants to call in and weigh on this topic. And again, we appreciate all the calls and all the tweets today. Who is it and what team is it for you, Paul?
Well, it's not really a team. It's the Monday Night Football, crew.
Yeah.
When Frank Gifford left, I remember it from the Cosell days, Dandy Don and all that. But when Frank Gifford left, it's like, nah, why not? I'll see it tomorrow.
And if Frank Gifford, they did the thing with him, Alex, you might be old enough to remember this. They pulled him out of the booth, but he did this intro thing where like a book would open and Frank would be like, the Cardinals rivalry with the Saints dates back to this vicious game in 1969. Yeah. And it was this regal, because Frank to me had a very regal voice. He had just this electric feeling. I always liked Frank Gifford a lot as an announcer, and he'd done stuff on Wide World of Sports and all when I was a kid. He was Evel Knievel's buddy. So when Evel was jumping buses, Frank would interview his mangled body at the end of whatever went wrong. And Frank would amble up with his microphone and interview just a broken to pieces Evel Knievel. I always thought Frank had just this air of cool about him. And it was that thing where like, Frank, we still like you, but we really need to get younger. So you're just going to intro the games now. But I actually liked that. But you knew the door was open and somebody had their hand on Frank's back by that time, which I hated.
And Hank Williams got, taken off for some public relations problems. I get that. But, the Are You Ready for Some Football was kind of iconic there for a little while. And now NBC has kind of duplicated that pretty well with the Carrie Underwood song. And I think the NBC Sunday night broadcast crew is so good. I watched that show because the 30-minute preview and then Chris Collinsworth and Al Mike, I think it's Al Mike, it was Chris Collinsworth and who's calling it with him now?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
So good. So good. The whole broadcast, first class. And guess what? The games figure out a way to be better. I don't know how that's not causation and correlation, but I think that's the superior broadcast. And you just wonder, ESPN has more money than NBC Sports. No question about it. Get better, guys. Frank Gifford's a good example.
Yeah. And, it's funny. We're talking about broadcasting. Somebody tweeted and said, broadcasting changed for me when Stuart Scott passed away. Tyler said that. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about broadcasters, the great Stuart Scott, who was a trailblazer and an icon and said things in a way that no one had ever said them. And it was interesting and funny and exciting and fresh to me. I was a big fan of Stuart Scott. Rest in peace. Guerin was actually the guy who said Mike Tyson, along with Cuzzo Mike talking about boxing. And it's funny, Cuzzo Mike bringing it up, these exhibitions, it's basically turned into a clown show. I mean, it's just turned into a circus
idiots
act.
To buy the pay-per-view. I'm sorry. If you're buying that, you're feeding right into the problem with the sport. Maybe like Evander Holyfield was really the last great boxer. Like when he was boxing Lennox Lewis, that was on the back end, that was on the slide, but that was the last great fight. I mean, even like Pacquiao, Manny Pacquiao, if you pass that guy in the street, obviously he'd whoop your butt, but you'd look at him and think, this guy is so small, I'm not scared of this guy. Like there's just something missing based on the heavyweights. Or the lack thereof.
Yeah, yes.
That's what I should say.
Well, time to call our shot before we go here. Louis Oosthuizen in the top the leaderboard at the Open. He won his only slam in 2010, but he's been second in everything else. He won the Open, the British Open, which, by the way, I just asked this question on Twitter. Is it okay to call it the British Open? Yes or no? Yes, 93.1%. No, 6.9%. G Money asked on Twitter, are y'all bored? I said, nah, you via the Blaine and Mickey Twitter account. I mean, we're not dwelling on it. Just ask.
Let me tell you what, though, that 6% that doesn't want you to call it that really doesn't want you to call it that, though. They're a vocal 6%.
They are a very vocal 6%. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick Jordan Spieth. Career hasn't gone the way he wanted. Exploded in this fireball of flames. He hasn't won a slam, since 2017 maybe. He's in third place now. It's not a huge shot to call. The Louis Oosthuizen -11, Colin Morikawa -8. Jordan Spieth is 8 under, but he's up close. This is a chance. Who knows? It's a funny game. Who knows how many more chances? Maybe he takes advantage of this one. Spieth wins the Open or British Open. Call it what you want to.
Glad you called that, because I'm going to go Colin Morikawa, the best ball striker in golf. Jordan Spieth is the best putter right now in golf. That'll be an interesting match right there. But honestly, we might both be wrong. And I wouldn't hate, he's not an American. I usually root for the Americans. Louis Oosthuizen winning. He's one of the best golfers that hasn't won anything, of the last 10 years. But fun fact of the day, Jack Nicklaus, most majors ever, he came in single second 19 times. Think how many times if he'd have just finished those off.
Just think what 19 seconds would be worth in the current PGA money list.
Be good
Lucas.
To be that guy.
Yeah, no doubt. Lucas, what you got, man? Call your shot on the way out, then we'll hand the baton off to the 3HL crew.
I'm going NBA Finals. Home team has won each game. Suns -4 in Game 5 as it heads back to Phoenix.
Suns -4 in Game 5. I like it. 4s and 5s.
Suns and 6.
And it's almost 3. So it's time to give it away to 3HL. Have a great weekend, everybody. Great job today, Alex. Blaine, if you're listening, what's up, buddy? We'll talk to you soon, and we'll see all of you on Monday.
See y'all.
Everything Titans. Your home for Titans football and the flagship for Titans radio.